Welcome back to Brian Keene's Secret Histories. Today we're going to be talking about The New Fear, The Best of Hail Satan, Volume 3. This book comprises nonfiction that I wrote between 2005 and 2006. Most of it appeared on, of course, the Hail Satan blog. However, this one also includes material from other sources. In 2005, I had a limited series blog called World Domination 101, which was writing advice for brand new baby beginning writers. All of that material is included in here. It also includes a piece that Delirium Books asked me to write. They wanted to, as I recall, they wanted to start a magazine, a print magazine, and I was going to have a column called The New Fear, which would examine real-world horror, horrifying things that were happening in real life all around us. Unfortunately, the magazine never happened, so I only wrote one essay, two actually, and they're both included in here. Also included in here is a piece that got me in trouble with the CIA, and another piece that got me in trouble with the F.B.I. And let's talk a little bit about that. Let's take those separately. Here in America, if you as a public citizen want to visit FBI headquarters, you can. You can take a guided tour. You can visit the White House and take a guided tour. You can visit most of our public federal buildings. You cannot, however, visit CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia. You cannot even get on the grounds. The only way to get in there is to be invited in there. And you have to pass a stringent security check, background check. You have to go through increasingly stringent security protocols and checkpoints and procedures before you even get to where you're supposed to park. And then again, to get inside the building, you can't take cell phones. You can't take anything to write with. But I've been there a number of times, as was my dear departed friend, J.F. Gonzalez. Can't tell you why we were there each and every time, but I can tell you that several times we were there because the CIA does something nice for their employees. Remember when you were in high school and you could take those elective clubs, like chess club, drama club, rocket club, things like that? Well, the CIA has similar programs for their employees to sort of break the stress, alleviate the stress, break the monotony. One of those groups is a writers club. And they would have various writers from various genres come in and talk to them once a month. And Jesus and I were invited one year and enjoyed it very, very much. And after that, our handler had us back several times, had us back for some other things as well. But that first visit, Jesus and I got up at 4 in the morning and left here in Central PA. Now Washington, D.C. is ostensibly only about a 90-minute to 2-hour drive from where we live. But with Beltway traffic, you've got to give yourself a minimum of 3 hours for rush hour traffic. So we left early. We wanted to get there on time. And as I said, you can't have any sort of recording devices. You can't take notes or anything. So when we got out of there, I had left my Moleskine notebook in Jesus's car. And while we were eating dinner at a restaurant off the interstate, I took notes on everything I remembered, and he filled in everything he remembered. And when I got home, I wrote an essay for Hail Satan about our visit to CIA headquarters. That essay had been live for maybe 5 minutes when our handler reached out to us and said, "You have got to take that down immediately, and you've got to edit this out, this out. That he gave me a list of things that had to be edited out because I hadn't vetted it, you know. Uh, and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, you know, I tried not to give away any top secret shit." And he said, "Well, you didn't, but you've given our enemies a step by step guide walkthrough on you know what the security procedures are and what they're going to encounter should they try to breach the grounds," which was not my intent. So I apologized profusely. I immediately took it down. I edited it based on his suggestions and corrections. That edited version appears in this book. Um, there's another essay in here that earned me a visit from the FBI. It was a political rant. For those of you who don't know, I don't often talk politics, but I'm a moderate. I'm a centrist. I absolutely lean left, um, particularly on social issues. You know, I am an absolute 110% ally of our LGBTQIA community, of marginalized folks. You know, I'm fairly liberal, uh, but I do consider myself a moderate and a centrist. You know, I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment, things of that nature. I don't know. We used to call it common sense. I'm not sure that is around anymore. I bring this up because the essay in this book in question uh, made fun of George W. Bush and his opponent both, um, made fun of folks on both sides of the political aisle, left and right, and detailed my wish that if I was a billionaire, I would build a rocket ship and I would send all of them to Mars where they could argue amongst each other, and while the rest of us, you know, fixed everything down here on Earth. Um, so one morning, the FBI showed up at my home, and it was like something out of a movie, y'all. It was a black SUV, just like something out of the movie, and the guy had a suit, and I made him for some kind of cop right away before he even got to the door. I just wasn't sure what kind, and he introduced himself. He showed his ID. I remember turning around, looking at Cassandra, my wife at the time, and she gave me this look that said, "What the hell did you do now?" And, you know, he wanted to ask me some questions. So I invited him out to my office, which was a separate building from the house. And we sat down and he asked me a series of questions. The first of which was, "Are you now or have you ever been a member of a militia or patriot movement?" Um, it went, you know, as you can expect, including he wanted me to list all the guns I owned. So I listed all the ones that I knew are on record, um, et cetera, et cetera. At the end, when he stood up to shake my hand, he noticed I had a magnet from inside Langley. Oh, I should mention the CIA has a gift shop inside Langley where you can buy things. And I had bought a mug and a magnet. And he noticed the magnet and he says, "Can I ask where you got that?" And I said, "Yeah, I got it inside Langley." And his eyes went wide, and you know, I pointed out to him perhaps if they did some more information sharing, he would have been saved this visit, since I had just passed a security clearance like a few months before for that visit to Langley. Anyway, come to find out about a month later, it was a Hail Satan essay that had put me on their radar. Um, I'm really fucking proud of that. I'm really proud of this book. Of the 4 books in the Hail Satan series, this is my favorite. Uh, I think it's some of my best nonfiction writing from that first decade of my career. However, it is not happy writing. The Brian Keene writing these essays was not a happy person. And as always, GAC captures what was going on in my life with the cover. You know, as we said, GAC did all the original covers to these books. The first book, Sympathy for the Devil, you may remember, it's a happy-go-lucky devil starting out, going to take the world by storm. The second book, Running with the Devil, which contains material written by the time I'd hit #1 on the bestseller list and was out in Hollywood, etc., etc. His cover captures that perfectly. This cover, it's Brian Keene looking in the mirror at Satan, and Jack even got the 4x4 tattoo. He even got what was then just a little bit of male pattern baldness. Today, of course, far different. But yeah, I was not happy. I was absolutely torn between obligations to my family and obligations to my writing family. Torn between those two worlds. There are 100 reasons why The Sopranos is my favorite television show of all time, and why Tony Soprano is my favorite fictional character of all time. But that is the #1 reason. My God, do I feel the dichotomy of being torn and trapped between those two worlds. And, you know, as Tony tells Syl in the show, and every decision you make affects everything. It's a beautiful scene, and that's the place where I was when these were written. I was miserable, folks. I had achieved everything I ever wanted to do. I had achieved my childhood dream, and I was miserable. I wasn't enjoying it. I was hating it. One of the things I'd done was convinced myself that people were no longer buying my books and stories because they were good. They were buying them because Brian Keene could make them money, be it publishing a Brian Keene book and selling it, or be it buying a Brian Keene book and reselling it on eBay. So one of the things I did was I started submitting stories as Adam Senft. Now, this is before Dark Hollow had been published. Again, we've already talked about Dark Hollow, but the essays in here were written, although this book was published in 2007, they were written in 2005, 2006. So people did not yet know that Adam Senft was a character in the new Brian Keene novel. My thought was, let me try submitting stories as Adam Senft, and let's see if people buy them. If people buy them, then they're buying things based on my writing. If they're not, they're buying things based on my name. Sort of similar to what Stephen King did with his Richard Bachman pseudonym, although I think Steve had better reasons than I did. I know Steve went through some unhappy periods himself, but I don't think he ever quite had that dark twilight of the soul that I was going through. And Steve, if you're watching, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. You tell me. But yeah, that is recounted in here as well. It went off the rails pretty quick, and it ends up being a very funny story. But yeah, I'm proud of this book. As I said, of the 4 Hail Satan books, I think this is the best. If you've never read the Hail Satan books, you're curious about that era of my nonfiction, I'd say start with this one. Just, as I said, be warned, it is not a happy Brian Keene. I mean, there's still all sorts of misadventures and shenanigans and deep thought and wisdom, but it's coming from a deep well of self-loathing and sadness. And when I flip through this book, I see it clear as day. And I see it here on Gak's cover as well. Delirium Books did a limited edition hardcover, and they did a trade paperback. Later on, when I got the rights back and reprinted the Hail Satan series, this is the new edition. This is the current edition. If you buy it now, this is the edition you'll be getting. Once again, Keelan Patrick Burke reimagining Gak's original art and doing a great job at it. So yeah, that is all I have to say about the new fear. Next up, we're going to be talking about Kill Whitey. We will see you then. Peace.